today, surprise, surprise, we have Joshua from JADC Studios, of which he's the owner and the principal architect. The nature of the business is architecture and based around Essex and east of England and London. So, a couple of bits about Joshua. So, I would say don't come to Frinton too much there, even though this is the what happens to you. An embarrassing moment that happened to Joshua was on the beach. Now, he loves the beach, except for seagulls. Seagull poo right in Joshua's ear. However, 5 minutes later, a second seagull decided to poo on Joshua's neck. So they literally get loads of them. However, a well-known problem that needs fixing: seagulls. It hits you first. Something that winds Joshua: seagulls. A dish he can cook well. Would like to try seagulls because his chicken wings are on point. So put your hands together, please, for Joshua.
I would probably already as well. It just kind of reminds me of this 10-minute presentation. It's like, oh, right, okay. So, right, there we go. So, I've done the 10-minute presentation before where I've talked about what the business does, and I just thought I would use this 10 minutes to just give you a bit of a background about me and my journey, how I got into architecture, and yeah, so this is an opportunity for you to meet Joshua, meet me, and I'll go into a bit more detail about some of the images that are on this slide. But before the whole architecture journey, there was a pretty different journey, and that was basketball. And basketball was my passion, and that was what I was actually pursuing as a career. And I would say I've gained a lot of things from basketball. I've gained a work ethic from basketball. And believe it or not, I had an opportunity to potentially go to America to play for a club. They say the dream to play professional basketball, but as many people know, America has an insane talent pool, and it's not very clear if I would have made it. But it was a very, very good experience nonetheless. So how it all began. For me, my journey to architecture began at college. I didn't, after sort of having to say goodbye to basketball, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I had left school with 2 GCSEs, so I had to work really hard to get into a position where I could go to university. So I was at college, loved college, because it was just a bit less formal than the whole sixth form environment. And at college, I had the wonderful opportunity to do a course in 3D design, where I found that I had a love for model making. The model making's really cool, because although in practice I can't really do a lot of model making, actually making the building in miniature, it helps you get a real understanding of how the spaces work. And I found that I had a real sort of 3-dimensional understanding. I was able to think about things in 3D, and that sort of started there. I guess the passion, you could say. Now another passion of mine is my lovely wife. So my wife Tracy definitely shown her commitment there. She met me when I started my training 13 years ago now, and she's still with me, despite seeing the highs, the lows, all the crazy that came with sort of studying architecture. I just wanted to include some wedding photos, as it was my 7th marriage anniversary on Monday. It was some sort of pictures of my wedding. Now here is my sort of first part of my training. As I said, it's taken 13 years for me to sort of complete the architectural training, and these are my experience at Nottingham University. I just want to point out this particular project here. So a lot of people don't realise the sort of mad sort of projects that they get us to do at university, and they often wonder, why did it take so long? No, architect. Well, this project here was a live project in the Thamesmead area in London, and it was next to an aspect of the Thames that was quite dirty. We had to reimagine the future of housing, try and imagine how could people live in the future, what could affordable housing look like. And I came up with a scheme where it was a sort of a community housing project. People would be encouraged to work together. I wanted to be able to clean the water, and I wanted people to be able to live sort of self-sufficiently. And so I sort of looked at a method called aquaponics, where you sort of grow water using food, no soil. And I worked out the actual aquaponic process. And because of the fact that it uses fish, and there's an element of it which would naturally, there will be a byproduct where the water would be purified. So there was a lot of sort of architecture is a very holistic subject, and we're encouraged to look at so many different subject areas apart from building design itself. As a result, we get architects, leaving architecture schools, believing that they can save the world. And that's what we do believe until we get into practice. It's quite funny, you're just going to do what the Queen's do, and that's it. I had a really good time at meeting, and still playing a bit of as well. Here is just the sort of snapshot of so Nottingham Trent is where I did my degree, and South Bank is where I did my master's, and then I finished my diploma at the Royal Institute of British Architects, and that's me with the president of the RIBA. Very proud moment, because I really didn't think I'd get there. I think I've tried to quit at least 4 times over that 13 years, but persevered, and here I am now. And so I'll just briefly now just talk about the different work experience that I've done. I've been very privileged to work for 4 different architects. So it started off with this practice that was based in Fulham, and it was a real sort of, now I actually worked unpaid because it was very competitive to try and get a job, especially in London, but it was just really rich experience. I got to work with the University of East London. I got to work with a celebrity client, which was pretty cool, and I got to be involved in sort of development projects as well. And it's experiences like this which have really sort of helped to establish my foundations. Moving on from there, I worked for a healthcare practice, and this is sort of this is taken from a project that I did for Charing Cross Hospital. I got to be heavily involved in the redesign of their ears, nose, and throat sort of department, and it's amazing. This yellow, it took 3 months to find the perfect yellow, because we had to find a yellow that would work with people who, so that when you've got any sort of eye seeing difficulty, black text on yellow is really important. So when an architect is choosing yellow, it can't just be any yellow, it's got to be a yellow that's going to be aesthetic as well. So I was running around the office like a bad man, looking at yellow and different lights in the office, and that was quite a nice experience. I just got to move quite quickly. And this here is the experience I did with an architect in Sheffield. What I really gained from this practice was just, there were a few opportunities where I got to compete with the owner in terms from a design point of view, and these projects I've included because they were ones where the client chose my design over my boss's design, and that was just a real sort of, it was experiences like this that showed me I was a lot more qualified than I realised, and I potentially had a good sort of career ahead of me. And this would be the last practice I worked in before setting up my own company. I got exposed to high sort of network clients, designing massive houses, crazy budgets, so people who could spend like 20 grand on a sofa, that's still crazy stuff. Lots of good fun. And I'll end with just a slide on. sort of, oh, I don't know what happened there. I'm not very branding.
So you're international brand.
Yeah. So now over the last sort of 2.5 years, it's been the JADC studio, working with my own clients, building my own sort of portfolio, and I guess growing in my interest as well. Because I would be honest, I get asked a lot, what's your favourite kind of architecture? And honestly, I do not know. I'm sort of open to working with anyone who just wants to add value to their property or land, and hopefully over time we'll begin to carve out a path where it's like, this is what I enjoy. Yeah, that's my presentation. Brilliant.
What would be your dream project?
I think my dream project would be one where, with the client, there's like it's a collaborative relationship. So they've got their idea of what they want to do, and it doesn't really matter what their sort of budget is, but there's the opportunity to sort of partner with them and to think ahead. I'm interested in housing. I would love to solve the housing crisis, or at least bring something to it. I've always liked the idea of, from an affordable housing point of view, trying to come up with a type of housing where the residents of the housing, if they've got low sort of income, then maybe there's an element where, let's say there are shops below and some of them are working in the shop. So they're earning money, and that's then going back into the maintenance of the housing. It's going towards the actual cost of the housing. It's like the circular economy, more than one. Yeah. Oh.
You mentioned that at the beginning of your 10 minutes, you used to make model here. I've done the same. So I know what you mean. And it really helps you get into the building.
Yeah.
Presumably you use some clever computerized modelling nowadays.
Yeah, you use 3D sort of modelling. I mean, it's not quite the same because I think with a model, what I love, you can hold it different angles. I think even when they do, often with big schemes, they do consultations where they invite the public in to have a look. And when you can see a big model, when you can look at it bird's eye, all that, it's just, it's quite a powerful way of bringing it.
That's really come across the dilemma yet between your design and your thoughts and what you want, and then what the client actually wants and what they can afford. Because on the TV programmes with well-known architects, you see them, they design these lovely schemes and then the client just can't afford it. So then they're disappointed because they have to go for a thing. How can you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I've found, having worked in practices where that happens quite a lot, an approach I've started to adopt is, at the early stages, I give my clients the exact option they're asking for, exactly what they're asking for. And now I sort of say, right, and now I want to show you an option, if money was no object for any reason, or let's say this is what else you could do. And then what I've found is that sometimes they're able to take bits from that idea and bring it into their idea, and we're able to discover a way that works. But that's not always how it goes. Sometimes, you get to site and, a wall that you thought was solid isn't solid, or something that you thought was built the right way isn't quite, and you've got to compromise. And so,
Who's the biggest blame of your life? Structural engineers that say you can't build it, or quantity surveyors that say you can't afford it?
Haven't decided.
On a similar vein, it's quite a lot of sort of stages. Like you go from meeting the client, sort of brainstorming ideas, doing drawings, CAD drawings, full everything engineering. I was like, what's the bits you enjoy most out of it, and what's the bits you like sort of getting off to someone else that you treat the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I know when I worked in practice, I really liked the technical sort of aspect. And that was partly because I found when it was at the early stage of design, there was so much that you could do that I felt I was a bit all over the place. But now that I'm It's my own practice and I'm doing it. I'm finding actually I really enjoy the early stage design stuff because we're sort of exploring all the possibilities. Technical stuff is getting a bit, I think it's getting very over. Understandably, there's now a lot more regulation than there used to be, and a lot more responsibility. So it's just a lot more pressure. And then I also really like being on site. So I'm finding I'm having to make a bit of a switch where I'm having to explore outsourcing some of the bits that I really like, because I can't afford to outsource the bit that if that goes wrong, then yeah, I want to have a government. So I hope that answers.
Joshua, thank you very much indeed for an excellent seminar.